Good morning, all. We've got the meeting today with regard to recruitment and retention, which is a hot issue for pretty much everybody in social care. There's lots of different routes to try and get around this, and we've got a couple of people here with some very good ideas today. We've got Skills for Care, and we've also got Purple Tribe, who are pretty much the market leaders in outsourcing of recruitment for social care. And with a bit of luck, we can bring you some updates around the funding that may be available for international recruitment as well, but we'll come back to that a little later in the meeting. Just before we get started, can I ask if anybody is having problems with DBS checks, with them taking a long time?
Yes, it is, yeah.
You're having some problems with them?
Yeah.
I come pretty quickly.
Okay, how long are the problems that you're having? How long is it taking?
For me, it depends totally. For example, one DBS, it comes within 1 week, but other DBS take more than 1 month. I have been, for example, I posted two DBS 3 weeks ago, but still, if I check the reference, still it didn't go to them. So I don't know what's going on there.
Okay, well, we've been sort of notified via the national body that some DBS checks are taking even longer. We're talking about 60 days plus, which is a problem. So recruits are going elsewhere. So it's yet another thing stacked on. But what we'll try and do is find out some information, and we'll post it on the website or circulate it. But if you do have any updated information on that, please just drop me an email or text, because it's useful to know what's happening out there, so we can.
I think what's it, just if I might chip in on that, Peter, it's obviously you're speaking to obviously your members from LCaS perspective, but I can confirm nationally it's a problem, not just in your membership. So I was at so last two. Just fortuitous, last 2 weeks I've done 2 recruitment health checks and audits, so consultancy projects, both for children's services, one in Sunderland, one in Newcastle and Gateshead, and both organisations, chief executives, HR directors reported that they're seeing much more escalations in the 60+ day bracket now, and when they ring up and chase, they're told we're just too busy. And so it is.
Can I just say,
that's what we're hearing.
Yeah, you've got 2 issues which are causing that. One is, of course, the police are now double checking all of their staff all over again. I know this because a colleague of ours works with them.
Yeah.
But also the coronation, and you have got a great mass of checks to do for all of the people that are involved in the coronation all over the country and everything else, all the volunteers, everything. So yeah, that's what's causing it, if it helps.
Well, I suggest that it would not be a good idea to get Mr. Butler and I started on the royal family. So perhaps we should move seamlessly on, Scott, to your wonderful presentation, so that you can tell everybody how to sort their problems out with recruitment and retention.
Oh, well, no pressure on that one. Yes, well, thank you. I think because we wanted to cover a little bit more about recruitment and retention, I think one of the things I didn't really want to do is really bore people with PowerPoint presentations and the whatnot. One of the most important things for people to understand, I think, at the moment is there's probably 2 sides of the coin. I think what will be interesting to know is the opinion of the people attending today, whether how important is, I don't know if you can, what will be the best way to do it, how important is international recruitment to the people that are actually attending this webinar? Is there a way that we could have a show of hands on that? Because what we're finding is there are split camps between the residential gangs and the home care gangs. So I suppose, without wanting to think, if you put your hand up if you're interested in international recruitment, if you know how to do that. So at the minute we'd have Andre and Bada. So
Lawrence.
you know, so
we
maybe
have a few, yeah.
a few.
I can't put my hand up for some reason. It's not giving me the option.
Go on,
So,
Alison.
yes.
Come on, Alison. You can do it. I believe in you.
Yeah,
Raise
I
that.
can't
Raise
see
that
it.
hand.
The other option would be to
normally-
put your hands up physically. That
Yeah,
could
put
work.
your camera on, put your hands up.
Yeah.
Hand up.
There we get in, Alison. You see, there's always a way, Alison. Well done. So there's probably a bit of a mix, right? So I suppose the other question would be, and this is where I think we're getting into a bit more of the ethics, because I am not anti-international recruitment at all. We have a partner to do it. We offer international recruitment services and support. So everything from helping people get a license through to processing the Home Office, you know, fees, as well as finding international candidates and applicants from all over the world, but using ethical and quality recruitment techniques. I think one of the things that is a bit of a concern and should be raised is, and Peter and I have spoken about this a lot, I think if recruitment done well, or international recruitment done well, I think it's a fantastic thing and it is needed for the country, because post-COVID, post-Brexit, the facts are quite worrying. We currently are sat in a situation where there are just around about 1.3 million open vacancies on the job market. So if you look at the minute, it's 1.3 million jobs, according to Office of National Statistics. That's how many vacancies candidates can choose from. But yet we've got something like 1.89 million, people unemployed. So we've basically got more people. We've got more jobs than we've got unemployed people at the moment. So the situation we find ourselves is you could kind of have everybody working, have nobody on benefits, and we still wouldn't have enough vacancy. We still wouldn't have filled all our jobs. So when we talk about, Recruited was often talk about a candidate-driven market. And well, what is a candidate-driven market? Well, a candidate-driven market is when the candidates have got the pick and they can get to pick and choose who do they want to work for, what fits me, what fits my lifestyle. There's a lot more gig economy work, on-demand type work. There's a lot more stuff like that. Now, I know people are worried about, are we going to go into recession? What's going to happen with the economy? It doesn't matter where we are right now. The fact is you can only deal with the now, and that is the fact that there's more jobs than we've got workers. So everybody's fighting for talent. And as you all know, in the care sector, we have to jump through all these hoops. My son works, got a job through his friend, flipping burgers, just turned 17 on £10.10 an hour. So he's getting the same money as a care worker, interviewed on a Friday, started on a Monday. So the speed in which other sectors can react to. So there is a lot of pressure, and I understand that. I think there is another thing driving the international recruitment as well, which is both good and bad. And again, I just want to make clear, I'm not anti international recruitment, because I think we need to have it. We had it before we had Brexit. We had people coming in. We now seem to be going through this crazy world of sponsoring people. But the one thing that I think is really different about the sponsorship is that where do we draw the line between quality versus the fact that this person's going to join my company, I'll sponsor them for 3 to 5 years, so they're kind of stuck with me, or I'm stuck with them. They'll work 40 plus hours a week. So I'm not expecting any staff turnover from these international applicants. But what seems to be happening in some camps is that there is we see some companies, and again, this is an ethical thing, and it'll depend on the quality of the leadership, seem to be abandoning quality control. We see when we speak to companies in the UK assessing people that already live here. Now they are already, an international worker. They're already in the company. So there's the difference being is because they're already here. What the difference is the sponsorship part, meaning somebody is here for 3 to 5 years, is in some camps seemingly overriding the quality control checks, because really it solves a problem. It's more profitable. If this person's going to work 40, 50 hours a week, and they're going to be here for 5 years, if it costs me X amount of £1,000 to hire that person, if it works out and they are a fantastic carer, and they do a great job, and they don't, for example, go off sick, or they don't, you know, provided nothing goes wrong with that and everything's perfect, then it really is a good return on investment. But it's also a really big gamble to take on trying to get someone to come in from another country and sponsor someone in that you've never met before. They haven't got a house, they haven't got a car, they haven't got a bank account, they haven't got any sort of cultural integration. We're going off somebody coming into the country. Now, one thing that may be interesting to show, I mean, I would assume, and again, people may put their hand up if they agree with this or not, but what I would strongly assume is that if you have already got a sponsorship license and you have sponsored someone, it's almost like when we speak to providers and look at data sets and look at information coming in, once a provider opens up Pandora's box with the, you know, I've got sponsorship and I'm sponsoring people, there is a flood of applicants coming in. And I think this is where it also poses a real challenge for the provider, because, you know, we're a professional recruitment consultancy and service. Just for the avoidance of doubt, we're not an agency, so we don't provide any sort of temporary staff or short-term cover. You know, our model is all about getting rid of agency costs and driving down the skills gap. So actually focusing and helping providers build permanent workforce solutions. So like I said, I'm in favor of getting international recruitment right, but what I might suggest is the fact that are people picking international recruitment because it's more cost effective and it's a safer bet? Or are they picking it because it provides better quality care? And I think one of the things that obviously people are hoping to do is find a balance between both camps. So could I actually, you know, I don't think I've not met any company yet, by the way, that I've spoke to that actually wants to be all international recruitment and sees that as being the future. But I see a lot of people seeing the international workers coming in on a sponsorship, maybe solving a problem of some of the more difficult shifts and more difficult locations. I wonder if we could get a show of hands, whether it be physical or virtual, whichever way we want to do it. How many people have actually got a license that have actually attended this webinar? Would you be able to, everybody, just give us a quick show of hands that people have got a license? So Alison, you've got a license. Yeah. Well, could I ask you a question, Alison, a direct question about it? So have you used your license?
Yes.
Yes.
We've recruited 5 people with our license, because we only had a license for 5 people per year. And we've now got to the maximum of the 5. But like you said, we've recruited 2 people who were already working for us, who were already in this country. So we've recruited them and sponsored them. The others have come from overseas.
Brilliant. So, and again, I appreciate this. So this is really interesting because, again, I don't have an opinion on this. I'm always wanting to gather data as to the why. So why did you feel the need, or what was it that drove you to actually go down the international recruit? What problem, what did it solve for you individually, as a company or as an owner?
Well, we were having issues recruiting, and from going to different events, we were told about the international recruiting. So we looked into it. To be honest, it was harder than we thought it was going to be, because it's not the actual forms, and the actual website isn't very user friendly. We just did it directly. We didn't do it through a third party provider. And it wasn't the most easiest thing to do. There was lots of paperwork you had to upload. But once you've done that, it's a lot easier then. The only difference was whether or not there were 2 different categories that people sat in, because it's whether or not you want senior care workers or care workers. And so they had different codes. So it's not that straightforward, but if you sit down and plan it and you take your time, it is easy to do. The reason we did the 2 people who were already working for us was because they were such great workers anyway. You
Yeah.
know, they were doing lots of hours. They were doing the required hours because they have to do a set amount of, or
Yeah.
you've got to give them a set salary
Yeah.
as well. So you have to make sure you've got the work for them, because if you
Yes.
haven't, you're still going to have to pay them anyway.
Yeah.
But the two people who worked for us were already doing those hours.
Yes.
They wanted to remain in the country. One of them was a student,
Yeah.
and his student visa was going to expire, but he wanted to remain, and he's going on to do some further studies as well. So that's why we did those two people, because they were such great workers anyway. And the others were that we just had a few sort of areas within our company that we couldn't fulfill. And like you say, as soon as you advertise that, well, we didn't actually advertise that we do sponsorship, but once people know
word gets out, doesn't it? And it just takes off. And then it's like, you know, you
Absolutely.
just suddenly like flooded your inbox with people saying we want it. I mean, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you can imagine what you can imagine what we're like, because we're working for multiple providers across the country. So even if the thing is, even if we've not got it, people are just emailing in documents. And
Yeah.
how did you, because this is a thing that I'm sure a lot of people will be interested in, especially if they've not done it. How did you actually go about sourcing your international applicants then from overseas? Because that's a challenge in its own right.
Well, we just looked at all of the people who we had, and then we sat down and did a grid of where our gaps were, what it was that we were trying to fill, what they had, that the experiences that they had. We're quite niche because we deal with people with additional needs.
Okay.
And so we don't only do domiciliary care, we do caring for people and young children who have got additional needs. So it was specialised care workers that we were looking for who had specialised training. We found that we got a lot of nurses who wanted to come over and work for us. A lot of people who are doctors in other countries but can't then practice to be a doctor here. So you'll be amazed of the skill set that people come with from overseas and who are willing to work for the rate of pay that we offer, because it's significantly more than what they're getting where they live, and it makes a huge difference to their lives back home, because they can send money back home, but they're also fulfilling a role that they really enjoy over here and having experience working in the UK.
Yeah, and that's. And the thing is, Joe, I'm so glad I've picked you there, because it's nice to hear a positive. It's nice to hear a positive. It's nice to hear a positive story and how somebody's going about doing it right, because you're exactly right. It's being bombarded with CVs might sound easy, but it's not. You've got to go, you know, through the process to it. So were there recommendations from people that you already knew, or did you just go out online, or, you know, how did those three people come into your funnel then as a sourcing tool?
Yeah, we did have two of them were recommendations that people over here had said that they had people who they knew who wanted to work here. The other one just came because of the sourcing process that we went through. And the students, as I said, there was one student who I met him at Metropolitan University, and he'd been working for us for some time, and he was just a fantastic worker that we didn't want to lose him. And so, you know, there was the danger that he would have to go back to where he came from if we didn't sponsor him. But he was brilliant, and he's remained such a good, solid worker for us. And there was another person who'd been working for us for a while, and we just felt that they really deserved it. Yeah,
and that's great. I mean, so I think what you've described there is a classic example of it's not like you want your entire workforce built out of it, you know, sponsorship candidates, but it's supplemented your team to fill the gaps, is what we're saying, and it solves that problem for you, doesn't it, in your work? Right? And I think that tends to be the common thread that we're coming across. So to put it into context, you know, we talk about, we're not just about international recruitment, we're all about candidate attraction. So I think what's interesting is that, you know, when we look at how people are coming into the fold, I think, you know, what people want is probably what is the holy grail is you ideally you need a blended workforce, because it represents more of, you know, what the UK is today. But obviously one of one of the things that most people, I think, are probably hopeful for with international workers is the long length of service, because of the retention issue is a problem in our question. And I think, you know, again, this is not gearing towards anybody in this webinar, but it's more a case of, you know, people coming in there just because they are signed up for 3 years, we still got to make sure we're giving quality leadership, quality management of the individuals, you know, as we should in any quality company. It's all about making sure you foster a collaborative culture and integrating those. And as you know, we've got a client of ours, they operate in Havering and Buckinghamshire and Dorset. They've probably got about 450 home care workers. Now, they've probably got about 10% of their workforce are internationally recruited. A lot of them from Zimbabwe and Ghana, but it's a blend. But if you look at it, it only makes up 10% of their entire workforce, so about 40 odd workers. But there are certain rules in place. They can't work more than 50 hours in a week. They can't have more than like 3 double ups. They've got to have at least 1 day off a week how they split their shifts. So there are set rules, even though they might want to work more. The company is saying, well, no, that's not safe. You know, there's a limit on anybody's pay. No matter how much you want to send back, we've got a duty of care to the people that provide care for you. You working 60 hours a week or doing 8 double ups, you're going to be shattered and mistakes are going to be made and you're not going to be delivering quality care. So they're putting in quality. But the first thing was interesting about where that they structure it. The first 2 weeks when they come into the country, it's all about cultural inclusion and sort of integrating into it. So helping them set up the bank account, helping them understand how to use a petrol pump, filling up the car, getting the bank sorted out. So there's a lot of effort goes into the setup of that. Now, obviously, there's a big benefit. I think the low-hanging fruit, as you've said, Alison, is probably, I know someone, they're on a student visa, I'm just going to port that across. That's a no-brainer because that's your perfect scenario. You've got a relationship, you know that person, you trust them. You know, the first thing you said is they're a fantastic worker. You know, doesn't matter where they're from. They're a fantastic worker, do a great job. I wouldn't want to lose them, you know. And sponsorship or not, you wouldn't want to lose. You've not sponsored them because you can't. You've sponsored them because they're a great worker and they've got great work ethic. They deliver great care. And again, it sort of gives me back a bit more, a lot more confidence when I'm speaking to people about the positive sides of it, because unfortunately, like I hear with Peter, we hear horrible stories, you know, 12 care workers, you know, living in a 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom house, being charged exorbitant rates, 1 care providers, you know, I'd heard that somebody knew a care provider where they're charging the person for the job to come into the country, which is, you know, it's scandalous. And if anybody's going, by the way, if it's not a shameless plug, but if anybody's going to the residential home care show next week, so I'm doing a talk on day 1 in the Keynote Theatre on building an international and local workforce, you know, how to get your recruitment right for that. So I'm doing a topic covering that. And I'm also on the second day, we're doing another topic on international care worker recruitment with Neil Eastwood, and there's Judgment Index and Sophie Ray. So there's some good talks on this subject. But what I was going to talk about with regards to local attraction. So we talked about one of our clients looking at in Hertfordshire.
Sorry, Scott, can I just interrupt you? Your brilliant flow of words for a couple of ticks.
Yeah.
I've just put the invite for the Excel show in chat. And as well as Scott talking, Dudley Sawyer, who has disappeared to another meeting, he's doing a number of events on tech services, of which he's an expert, and also on equality, diversity and inclusion, which links into recruitment, international recruitment. But Scott has come up with 2 words which are key to recruitment and retention, whether they come from Timbuktu or Timperley, and they are leadership and management. And if your leadership and management skills are pretty good, then your organizational culture will be pretty good, then your retention will be pretty good, and you will have a lot less trouble with recruitment if you have poor leadership and management. End of. Back to you, Scott. Thank you very much.
No worries. Thanks for that, Peter. Yeah, I think what I was interested in sort of going through is we talk about candidate attraction. This is going to be like a little bit of a probably a bit of a no-brainer, But I'm assuming everybody here for a candidate attraction source would be using Indeed. Would that be a fair assumption? I would say that everybody's using Indeed. I think, yeah, I'm going to say yes, because I kind of know they are using Indeed. Most people, if not 90%, will be, whether they put their hand up or not. And I think what we tend to find with Indeed is that often gets a bit of a bad rap because the cost of applications, what it means to bring people on board. But some people are quite concerned about, you know, how many people, you know, what they need to invest in recruitment to find the right people. So there are, in our model, you know, yes, we use job boards. So there's about 15 free job boards that we use in our outsource model. That includes Job Centre Plus, it includes Trovit, Glassdoor, Job is Job, Jubal. There's about 15 different ones. If anybody tells you there's more, there isn't. I can tell you now, it's complete nonsense. If you see one of these, we'll advertise your job for, you know, £500 or £300, it goes on 3,000 job boards. It is a complete and utter lie. There is no such thing. I can tell you now, our job board, our applicant tracking system that we give our customers, so the ATS system that we give our clients, globally, it connects to 2,000 job boards globally, engineering, accountancy, IT, but that's global. There are only about 15 free job boards that are worth anything. And if you're posting manually to these job boards, they probably wouldn't be worth your time, because it would take you so long to manually post them and refresh the jobs every week. You'd probably have one member of staff spending 2 days a week just posting adverts. So don't fall for the we'll advertise job, and if it works, that's fine, but don't believe it's going on 3,000 job boards, guys, because it's not. But yes, the only job boards that are paid are Reed, CV Library, Total Jobs. The free ones we use Indeed. The other new kid on the block, which is gathering momentum, is Google Jobs. Just a quick lesson for you all on Google Jobs. Google Jobs now ranks the #1 search for anything you like, and I think probably what may be beneficial for everybody. And again, I'm just going to quickly show this just to prove a point. So I'm just going to quickly share my screen. If I typed in to you guys, I think it's just loading. I think my screen's loading, Peter. Can you guys see? Can you see my screen, Peter? Hello?
Yes, I am.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Oh,
I
you
can
can
see it, yeah.
Ah, perfect. Right. So if I went to Google and I type in support worker jobs, Gateshead. Right. So what you've got here at the top, these are Google sponsored ads. So it's who's fighting it out. So Indeed are now putting Google sponsorship in their adverts, and Total Jobs are using Google paid adverts to get to the #1 ranking. But most people will flick past that. You'll now see Google Jobs will rank as the first. This is the rank #1 source for organic traffic. So when you type in a job, right, then it'll become Indeed again. If we change the location, if I put in health care, if I put healthcare assistant jobs, if I put in jobs near me, so Google Jobs has ranked #1 straight away by typing in the search term. Again, Indeed has come #1. The thing that is clever about Google Jobs that you should all be very, very aware of is if I type in teaching assistant jobs in Durham, Google Jobs also comes as #1 for teaching assistant jobs. I can literally pick whatever job I want. So if I punted, I don't know, quantity surveyor jobs in Bradford, Google Jobs has come #1 again. So it doesn't matter what you put, Google Jobs now ranks as the #1 source for candidates to be pushing to. It is not blown Indeed out of the water, and it won't do that anytime soon. It's taken Indeed years to do that. But the fact is that Indeed now will outrank, Google Jobs will outrank everything for any different search term you are looking for. The problem that you're all going to have is that when you search for jobs and you go into the jobs, what you'll see when you go into, even though I'm looking quantity survey jobs, you'll see the jobs on the left and you'll see which way it's applied for. So Jobby Jobber, Learn for Good. If I look at the next job, Building Careers, if I look at the next one, it's on LinkedIn. But if you notice, there will be very few of these will be via Indeed. You will see less than literally a fraction of these on Indeed. From what we've seen and what we've been told is that Indeed, Google are trying their best to not index any jobs from Indeed. And the big problem that everybody's got with Google Jobs being #1 ranked at the moment is, if you were to look in, for example, with this particular job, apply on Fox 44 News Jobs and Star Job Search. There is no way A&B Recruitment Group will have physically posted their jobs on these two scraping jobs. This is copying data from other sources in an attempt to grab your email details. So when you try to apply to the job, yeah, we're now being redirected, and it's ultimately taken us to CV Library. So there's multiple steps in the recruitment process. So Google Jobs is here to stay. How powerful it becomes is difficult to say, but what you can see is, I do believe, in my professional opinion, that Google Jobs will do to the market what Indeed has done to the job board market. Indeed started off taking jobs from Reed, CV Library and Total Jobs and advertising all the jobs in one source. You've now got a situation where Google Jobs is doing the exact same, but it's excluding Indeed vacancies. So if you're only advertising on Indeed, your jobs, there's 99% chance your jobs will not feature in Google Jobs. So you'll all be wondering, how do you get on Google Jobs? Well, you cannot physically post to Google Jobs. It is not a job board. It is basically Google Jobs needs to find you. And the only way it can do that is you have to have, we kind of build these things, but we have to have an actual live career page that actually has real-time jobs that can actually take the data and put it onto Google Jobs. So basically you allow Google Jobs to find your vacancies so that they can be posted directly and be picked up from that job. So what you'll be doing is you'd have a career site, integrates with Google Jobs. Google Jobs will suck the jobs through. The big benefit, if you get this right, is the applicants are free for now. So there is another way that you can find candidates. So the ways that you've got are Indeed, you've got Google Jobs, you've got paid and free job boards, word of mouth, you know, again, and you know, our applicant tracking system, if you're a Care Friends app user, our applicant tracking system integrates with that. But as you probably know, if you ask everybody today, who do you know could join us, you get a couple of people recommended to you. If you need another couple of people next week, you can't go and ask the same group of employees, who else do you know? Because, I don't know about most people on this call, but at 49, sadly, I don't make that many new friends at my age now. So you get to a point where I'd recommend everybody that I know, and then I'm done. So it's, recommending a friend and having people introduce people is part of your talent attraction funnel and strategy. But it's not, it's not the silver bullet. So you do have to have all these things going off. But locally, I think when it comes onto the subject of international recruitment, and I will just share one more thing with you. Now, this might be a little bit of a shock for people, really. I'm not really sure, but so this is real-time client data, looking at some of the areas that we've got. So the top left-hand corner, this is Indeed. Help people understand how Indeed will work and what maybe people don't understand about Indeed. So Indeed adverts need to be written in a certain way, with a specific keyword integration, and there are certain days and times that you need to refresh and advertise your job. You don't just set your job, you don't just advertise your job on a Monday and then leave it until the money runs out. That's the quickest way to waste money. But if you look at what's happened in this particular scenario, now this might give some people a shock. In March, this client spent £3,853 spread across 9 locations in Hertfordshire. And it costs, we managed to get it in front of a total of 109,000 people. And what the click-through rate is, so of the 109,000 people, 10.5%, so 11,000 people clicked the advert, 34%, which is 4,000 people started the application process, and 63% of the people completed the application process. That left us with 2,542 applicants in total in that month for £3,853. So the cost per applicant is £1.52. Now, we do have other locations, Southeast, where we only have 4 locations. We're only looking for a couple of hires a month down there. We're spending £400 a month down the Southeast, and we're only spending about £800 of the budget in the Southwest. Now, group spend last month was £5,000. However, this is in total. We've got this down. This is £2,500 less than they were spending previously. But this month we have a record. We have 40 people across the 3 locations going through onboarding and shadowing. We've typically been averaging 15 to 18 people a month. Again, 15 to 18 people a month is what we expect to get through. This month, by optimizing adverts, we've actually managed to reduce spend, increase conversion, but that's resulting in about 40 people. Of course, all 40 people won't make it through to the end, but we will expect about, between 27 and 30 new starts as a result. So you can then start to wonder and start calculating if the money you invest is a good return on investment. And if you are this particular client and you know that your care workers in home care, because this is all home care, by the way, if you know your care workers, for example, are going to be working, an average 26 hours a week or 30 hours a week, and they make you X amount of pounds marginal profit each new carer that you get, you could quickly work out in your business, you could ask yourself a question. If I spent £5,000 a month on recruitment, and I got 30 new starters, would that be a good deal for me? If I had 30 new care workers a month, would my company grow? Would I have a lifestyle business, or would I have a really profitable business, that I can grow in a quality business? Having your data, having your metrics, understanding what you're spending, why you're spending it, where it's going, and this application process, this takes quite a while for their candidates to get through this process. So I only wanted to share that slide with you because people think there aren't people applying for jobs in care, but Hertfordshire, 2,542 applicants. We've got Southeast, 355, and I think with there it's probably about the same, about 400, I think, on there, probably cut that off. But in total, 3,000 applicants, just over 3,100 applicants. Another top tip as well, if you are working with Indeed and you shouldn't be getting charged for international applicants, by the way. I know we've got a lot to get through, Peter. At what time are we working to here? Or what time am I going to?
Sorry, I got it on mute. How much longer would you want, Scott? I'm sure this is all interesting stuff and that it's useful for people. So if you want to take a bit longer, we've got time. If people want to throw some questions in.
Well, why not just pause there? Because I think the thing is, the international recruitment is, it's difficult when you've got a mixed band like this without a specific agenda, because Alison's proved a fantastic point. I could go waffling off on a tangent about what's good, what's bad. Alison seems like a fantastic example of what I would say somebody's doing it right. They're using it to supplement the team. They've got a combination of people that they already know, like, and trust. There's the credibility there. They know the worker. And then, Alison's taken, the risk, brought 3 people in internationally. And that's probably for most people the tougher bit. you know, I'm sure everybody on this call is ethical and is going to do it right, you know, and at least I hope that is the case. You know, so the international side of it, if anybody wants to, maybe we should pause whether they've got any question about international that they want to ask me, or whether they want to ask me anything about the candidate attraction locally, because, you know, even though I've just shown you an example there of Havering, as you know, Peter, through the workforce recruitment and retention from funds that we had, we worked with Havering Borough Council. We had a small pot of money compared to what was actually dished out to work across home care, LD mental health and supported living, and residential and nursing. And I think in a 12-week pilot project, it was about, we got 98 new people into care jobs. So like nearly 100 people, roughly 33 a month from a standing start, which is similar to the thing, you know, with, you know, like a mini version of what we're doing with you and LCaS. So I do have good insights into candidate attraction, both, you know, locally and what can be doing. So if anybody has got any quick questions or they want to ask me anything about that, rather than me just firing more stats and data, then I'm happy to answer anybody's questions if it helps anybody. It's obviously that good a talk, I've not got any. Oh, it looks like I've got a free. Well,
I think it's worth adding at this point that for those of you who work in the 6 boroughs of Southwest London, LCaS and Purple Tribe have put together a recruitment process which will offer you some free services. It's being funded generously by Skills for Care. So if you do work or operate or are based in the 6 Southwest London boroughs and you want some more information, you want us to talk to you about what can be offered to help you with recruitment, then put your email or some contact details in the chat and we will come back to you in the next few days, you know, and take it forward. But recruitment is clearly a big and continuing problem, in the same way that, say, organizational culture is across social care. But we aren't going to get anywhere just by using, as Scott has pointed out, you know, international recruitment, migrant workers. Any points for Scott, or anything that you want to dwell on a bit further, Scott?
Well, because there's no questions right now, but if people got questions after, again, you can put my details in chat. What I will do is that probably the last thing I think is on the subject of what we're doing with what we'll be doing for you, I might as well just quickly share the slide that will articulate exactly what the process is that we're doing. So this, as if you guys can see this particular, if you can see this slide now, so this is what we created with Havering. So what we did, working with the Proud to Care scheme. So what we did is the top left-hand corner here, we had London Borough of Havering, and we had home care, residential and nursing, LD mental health supported living providers. So that was the borough. What we did is we gathered the needs of everybody that wanted our support. So they told us what jobs they'd got, what shifts they'd got, what salaries they're willing to pay, what type of people that they want. So we had requirements for all different sectors. We then were responsible for running the Facebook digital campaigns, creating Google Jobs, Reed, CV Library, Total Jobs, Indeed, Glassdoor, Job Centre Plus. So we advertised all the jobs using our applicant tracking system. They came into our recruitment team. And just so you know, all our recruiters have worked in care. So we're not, like I said, we're not an agency. Our staff know what care is all about. They've actually walked the walk and talked the talk. So they know what it's like to be new to care. They know what it's like to do the job. They know the pressure of the job. So our team would be screening candidates for suitability of the role, but also location, because what we wanted to do is our duty is not to any one particular provider, it's to actually make sure we're helping build workforce capacity across the borough. So what we're able to do, Peter's applied, we know, we can then go through a set of screening questions. So where do you live, Peter? What made you apply for care? So we go through some values-based questions, but we knew that if Peter didn't drive and only wanted to work nights, and we knew he lived in, SW1 postcode, we knew that we had 3 residential care or LD supported living services, all looking for nights, all looking for somebody like Peter, and we arranged the interviews for Peter to attend. with those 3 providers, which created a competitive situation, which meant that Peter now could look at different care providers local to him, probably walk to work, and find out which things were the best fit for him and what he would be most passionate about working in. Because if we only tried to shoehorn him into one vacancy as opposed to letting the candidate have choice, you know, then the sector misses out. But it also meant that the care providers in this other area had to roll out the red carpet. You know, as we would say, we'll roll out the purple carpet and do a great job of making sure everybody knows why it's a fantastic place to work and why you should go and meet them. But we can do all that, but if the provider doesn't roll out the red carpet, or if the provider doesn't give us interview availability till this time next Wednesday, then they're going to lose out, because the candidates, as I've said before, it's a candidate driven market. They've got choice. But like I said, what we would have done is we'd screen the candidates. Anybody that was either new to care, we got partnerships so they can do e-learning or do pre-employment training. Anybody that wasn't a social fit, we put them in our talent pool so that we could look for talent and find out what people had what skills in what area, what postcode. So we were matching all the people to the actual right roles, you know. And again, what we're able to do then is, once the team have got that, they pass it through, working with they had a job broker in place, and then the clients got that. But the training, this service that we are providing, that's funded by Skills for Care, the same way that this was funded by the Workforce Recruitment Fund, everything was entirely free to the care providers. So all those 100 people that got a job, or those providers that benefited from it, they didn't pay a single penny with it. So yeah, that's what we will be doing with the project for you. It's just on a shorter time frame, really, and a few tweaks because of the budgets available and what we're doing. But that's pretty much a mirror. So yeah, I'll as you know, if I'm not careful, I could talk all afternoon on this subject. I'm quite passionate about it, and I love it. But I'll leave it there. But if anybody wants to grab my details off you, or wants to chat outside of this about any recruitment problems or challenges they're having, by all means reach out. We're more than happy to help.
Great. Thank you, Scott.
You're
There's
welcome.
an offer. Any points for Scott, or we've got a couple of other things to talk through? Okay, well, I don't think Scott's disappearing instantly, and a couple of his colleagues, Sienna and Richard, are here as well. So there's plenty of skills there. I'm not sure if Cheryl has been able to join us at the moment. Can I just ask if Cheryl has been able to come in this morning? Okay, we'll assume that Cheryl wasn't able to join us. There's a technical issue, but I do have some information. Now, Cheryl Brand is part of the South London Partnership. And the reason that Cheryl was coming along was to talk about pastoral support for international recruitment for migrant workers. The government is sharing some funds, hopefully. It's yet to be finally confirmed, but each part of London will have access to local authorities or groups of local authorities to some support funding. And I'll put a piece of information in the chat which covers the South London Partnership, which is the one that Cheryl covers. And you're very much welcome to contact her. There's her email and a phone number. And also, you know, we can check through the wording there that she's actually added to it. So I've just put that in. Basically, this is as toed and froed. We've been aware of it for quite some time, and we're also aware of the fact that there are other parts of London doing a very similar piece of support work. But everybody had worked pretty hard. And the assumption was that the funding would be available by now. But we are now thinking that there's been a final meeting, and hopefully the funding will be announced next week. If you need more information, if you're in the South London Partnership area, then talk to Cheryl. if you want information for Southeast or Northwest or any other part of London, either contact ourselves or contact Skills for Care or your local authority, because all of us, I'm pretty sure, will be able to steer you in the right direction. Thanks, Laura. And great. And Southeast London, we know that Southeast London have got a partnership going, and I'm also aware that Northwest London, and I'm pretty sure that Havering Care Association or My Caring Voice have got something as well. So if you do want information, then, you know, I say either plug into your local authority, talk to Cheryl or one of her colleagues, and we will forward the information to you. And I can see, I know that there's Alison Wright's just put something in about Northwest London. If you know Selena from Skills for Care, Selena has posted some information, so I can get that information to you, or if you're already aware of Selena Doherty, then just drop her an email and she will forward it on to you.
Could I ask a question on the subject of the funding, Peter? Because this has raised its head a few times, and I don't know whether your team, I'm probably not going to ask the question. I think, does anybody have an idea what they would want to use the funding for? Because this has been the big debate. We've talked about the money coming in and what to spend it on, and the government seem to be very good at dishing money out with a very broad brush topic headline, like Workforce Recruitment and Retention Fund. What does that mean? You know, and I've seen different variations of that, such as you know, Barnsley Council offered everybody an extra £1 an hour to put on the salaries, which everybody rejected, because as soon as the workforce recruitment tension dried up, they'd be stuck with the extra £1 an hour cost. So that died a death. Other companies have done stuff like building training academies and things like that, when we've probably got a lot of training companies and stuff like that. So I think the thing is, what would people, if they got some money, what would they want this money to go on? You know, is cultural thing, what is that, what everybody wants? Is that what everybody needs? I'm just curious, seeing as we've got all your members here, what do they think this money should be spent on? Because it's meant to help them. I don't know if anybody can offer anything up who's attending this, because I'd be keen to hear what the actual workforce are saying they want to use it for. So somebody said training for international staff, it costs a lot. And I think, but is that specific training? You know, I think this is what we need to delve into, because I feel when we're talking to the councils or when we're talking to people about this type of stuff, there is a real hesitancy and wariness. You know, if we do this, there could be litigation or problems against us. So the councils seem to me, and this is just my personal opinion, seem to be worried about what it is that they're going to spend or invest this money in. But yet I think it's really interesting is we need to know, what are the providers telling us, what are they saying they need? You know, and I don't feel like they're doing that very much.
Comments, please.
Can I say something, please?
Please do.
Yes, go for it, Florence.
Thanks. In our own case, we deal with complex packages from children to adults, which means we do trachea ventilated patients at home.
Yep.
So apart from general training,
we
do need intense training for our carers.
Yeah.
That takes about 3 months before you can leave a carer with a ventilated life support.
Yes. Yeah, that makes complete sense. Yeah.
We do really need help on that aspect. And also, I've mentioned in this meeting as well that when we bring people in, we need a bit of accommodation help as well.
I think from what I'm gathering, they're seeing things like like for example, with people that are wanting home care, it's like, well, you could imagine the uproar if they were to help you buy a car for somebody that doesn't live in the country, and yet we won't, for example, we won't interview somebody that lives in the UK because they haven't got a car. Why would we buy a car for someone that's coming into the country? I
No,
would buy. You see, that's the way that the councils are looking at it and they're seeing it, is that if we did it for international applicants, there would be an uproar. Because why
yeah,
would we not? Why when the government? I know that they're already saying, why are we supplying you guys with cars? That's your problem to sort out. The training one, I can see them. For example, I know you're not asking for a car, but these are the things that they're talking about to us. And my worry is with these things. You know, we had. I posted a blog on LinkedIn. And I'm probably talking about, because seeing as we've got a couple of speakers missing, I put a thing on LinkedIn. So we worked out with Havering, it was working out about it was working out all in for the resource, everything. It was working about £800 a hire for us to do all this work. So that's the ATSs, the job boards. You know, we did the DBSs, the references. Oh, this was all local recruitment. So it's £800 an hour. So you can imagine when, even if you said it was even if you rounded out to £1,000 a hire, one of the large county councils got £8 million of workforce recruitment and retention funds. So based on our model, we could have put in 8,000 people into work in that borough based on our model. And yet that borough, well, that county cannot tell us how many people they got a job with £8 million. And that's my worry when we pump this money into the system. So £8 million went to just one of the county councils. So with £8 million, what did you do with that workforce recruitment and retention fund that got people into jobs or retained staff? And there is no data at all to support what that money went on. And so we've now got another lump of money coming in to help people. And the biggest problem that they get with this thing is, here's your money, spend it quickly. And if they spend it, they've done their job and they tick a box. And my worry when we're speaking to providers is, well, let's spend this on something that gives us a tangible benefit that helps people. That's what you're asking for, isn't it, Florence? That would help you. You know, we could help you with your training. You know, we could, if we got all your, if we could use that money to get your trachea training or your peg feeding or, you know, specialist stoma things and ventilation training, that takes a burden off you. You've got your person there. You've got them skilled, ready to go. Perfect. So that's a great example. You know,
I think the point that's just been made by, I'm sorry to use the number, but 44736 in the chat is one that's been made a number of times about the NHS getting funding to recruit international, and they get the training funded as well. We have had a brief conversation with one or two people at the NHS about would they share the funding, and of course they won't. They say the NHS will always tell you they haven't got any money. There is some training available at reasonable rates, but it isn't free, and it's not something that you can say claim WDF for. I think I'm right in saying that Workforce Development Fund, John or Laura would know the answer to this, can be used for international recruitment individuals. And I think we'd all like to see greater use of Workforce Development Fund. Far away, John.
Yeah, no, just to say, I mean, people, I saw the comment about international training costing a lot of money. I mean, we do the same training for international learners through the WDF as we do for domestic. We can actually train people whilst they're in country before they come to the UK. To be totally honest, our experience of international workers has been fantastic. We've worked with a number of employers who've brought people over. We tend to find that they're extremely keen. They've got excellent language skills. They, you know, are willing to do the work. I mean, if I'm honest, they're often a lot easier in terms of training than some of our domestic learners. Generally, because of the demographics, most of our domestic learners, I think we're talking about just over 85% of our learners don't have English as a first language. We're kind of used to that, but with the international students, they've actually done their English language to a qualification level, and actually it is much, much smoother. And And I think from the employers that we worked with, they find the whole thing works really, really well. They get good staff, probably overqualified staff, who are committed to staying here, committed to building a new life. And personally, I'm a big fan.
I think, John, I think yours is a great example where I think we do need more companies talking about the success stories, because it can be done well, but it's got, as you probably would agree, you've got to do it right, haven't you? You've got to go about it the right way. You have to have the structure, you have the things in place, both pre-entering the country, the training, before they enter company is great. I think one thing that people shouldn't get confused about is just because we've sort of closed borders with Brexit, it's just what used to be our European neighbours coming in to do jobs. Now, our neighbours now through the international sponsorship are just a bit further afield, and again, we've had the practice of doing it well.
Yeah, and I think one of the additional things is, I'm sure a lot of employers will find that, if you're recruiting a lot of staff domestically, there's a number of staff that don't want to work more than a certain number of hours because it has to tie into kind of claims and all the rest of it. And you're getting somebody from overseas and they'll do full-time work for you, and your kind of organizational costs are as high for somebody working full-time as they are for somebody only working 19 hours a week. So I must admit, we've worked with 7 different employers who've been involved in overseas recruitment, and they're really, really happy with it. Excellent.
And I think there needs to be more success stories and people showing people the way to do it right, I think, and how to do it right, because, again, I think it's a reflection of your organisation. You would hope people be doing a quality job, whether they're recruiting locally or internationally. But I think what you've hit on there is a really good point, is that the people traditionally coming in through international, and John's picked up is really important, is they're not here to work 16 hours a week. They are here they want to be doing the work, they want to be earning the money, regardless of what the circumstances. That's what they're coming to do. They're coming to get the jobs done. And let's be honest, that's what we need. We need people that are committed to doing the job, want to do the job. And Alison was saying exactly what John's just said, really highly qualified people coming in, they want to pursue a career in care. And you're getting people with top level skills that they know what health is, whether they care or not in your particular environment. They can be trained in that. But if you get it right, you can tap into some talent. John, do you mind me asking if you found any particular areas or region? We'll hear people talk about people from Philippines or Malaysia and stuff like that. Have you found anybody? I know it might sound a bit not PC to ask, but I don't know if you found anywhere where you're finding a rich seam of talent in any particular countries.
To be honest, we seem to be getting a lot. We're getting a lot of learners from Zimbabwe, from South Africa. Actually, I think we had a few from Australia, which was kind of interesting as well. India, but yeah, Zimbabwe tends to be the kind of a hotspot for a lot of our recruiters.
We are seeing, well, I would agree with that. If I look at the volume of what we see what we get inbound people applying to us, we have to say, look, we're not an agency. Our clients have got sponsorship, so we kind of get us confused with that. But because we manage we oversee our clients' Indeed applications and everything coming into the funnel, I would totally agree with that. We're seeing a lot of Ghana and Zimbabwe seem to be quite dominant things. Interestingly enough, the bulk of people, when I was saying the big 450, 10% of their workforce, they're all Zimbabwe. Majority, I would say about 80% of them are from Zimbabwe. So that's interesting that you see the same. It marries up to everything I'm seeing, John, to be honest. No, I think that was my point. International.
Yeah, I think that those are all points, very well made. And I think that, there's an awful lot of work out there. And what some of the companies are struggling, frankly, is they're actually struggling to manage the people they've got doing the work. And also, the comment that some people come to join social care and then they want to move off into the NHS. Well, if you've had someone that you've recruited who's done a good job for 2 to 3 years and they've picked up skills, then, I think you've got to look at that positively and say, well, I've had that good person working for me for 2 to 3 years, because the average length of stay for many social care workers is a lot less than a year. So if you've had someone for 2 to 3 years, then basically wish them well and use them as a contact in the NHS, frankly. If we can move on, because I know that Laura Anthony from Skills for Care has got some very useful stuff to share. Laura, do you want to do your slides yourself, or do you want me to pull them up for you?
I can do them, Peter. I'll just save them up now.
All right, thanks.
Hopefully those have come up. I'll just try and do it as a slideshow so you can see them a bit more clearly. Okay, so I'm just going to share a couple of new resources with you today, and also let you know about a webinar we have coming up on recruitment. So the first quite new resource is our Better Hiring Toolkit. And this gives advice about obtaining references, just to make sure that your pre-employment checks are robust, so you can better safeguard the people that you support. So there's guidance in here about the information that you need to collect from candidates. There's information about what an effective reference should include, and also some advice about what you should do if it hasn't been possible to get a reference for someone. And there's also some useful tips on verifying references and how to deal with any discrepancies in the information that you receive. So this toolkit can help you to meet CQC Regulation 19, which is fit and proper persons employed. So Peter's going to put these slides on the LCaS website, and you'll be able to access the toolkit by clicking on the hyperlink at the bottom of the slide. I'll put the link in the chat in a moment as well, so you've got that to hand. So on the 25th of April at 10:30, we're going to be running a webinar where we'll talk through some of the information from the toolkit. And again, I'll put the booking link to this in the chat. That's free to join. And during the webinar, we'll be discussing how detailed and effective references are a really important part of safer recruitment and that robust vetting, which is so crucial in social care. And we'll also touch on some of the concerns that managers have about employment law preventing references from being too in-depth. That should be really helpful webinar for you to join. Another new resource we've recently launched is called Curious About Care. And this is an online pre-screening tool you can ask candidates to complete before they come in for interview, just to assess if they're suited to work in care. You don't waste your time or the candidate's time if they're not the right type of person. So what Curious About Care asks you to do is complete a quiz, which is based around fictionalized versions of real life care sector scenarios. And the candidates are asked how they might respond in different situations. And if you go onto the website, you can see some examples of what candidates might be asked about. And once the candidates completed the quiz, the recruiting manager will receive their results along with a report, which gives an overview of whether or not they're suited to work in care work. So as I've said, a really useful tool just to see whether it's worth inviting someone in for an interview or not. And it's free to access. And you can see the link at the bottom of the slide there. And we've spoken a lot about international recruitment today. So this is just a reminder that at Skills for Care, we've got an international recruitment webpage, and that brings together a number of different resources about international recruitment all in one place. So the Department of Health and Social Care has recently put together a help sheet for social care providers on becoming a visa sponsor. So that may be helpful if international recruitment is something that we're just starting to think about. You can access that help sheet from our international recruitment webpage. So that was everything from me. So I'm the locality manager for South West London. My colleague Selena covers North West London. If you're from another part of London, please get in touch with me and I'll signpost you to the relevant person. For any questions about recruitment, funding for training, please do get in touch and I'll try and help. If there are any questions now, just please shout.
Okay, folks, questions for Laura, or questions about skills for care, or questions about workforce development funding, how to access that free source of valuable money? Everybody.
Good question, actually, Peter, if I don't mind. Just thanks, Laura, for that. Always really helpful to hear from you and get some insider information. Interestingly, Curious for Care as a toolkit for an employer preparing to employ someone, I would assume it would be conducted perhaps pre-face-to-face first stage interview or something. Because if you are then offering someone, it wouldn't be on contingency of 2 references, a DBS and passing 75% of Curious for Care, would it really? Because I guess it's a useful toolkit to sort of say, well, look, ensuring that someone's values are aligned with your company.
Yeah, very much. It's kind of a pre-screening tool, so it will help you decide whether someone is worth bringing in for interview or not, rather than you kind of spend your time and the candidate's time on having that interview. It's just, is it worth it or is it not? So I've had to look at some of the scenarios and they are really good at bringing out people's values. It's what would you do in this situation, perhaps as someone with dementia, perhaps asking about where their partner is, partner that died a few years ago, what would you do in that situation, and things like that. So I think it is quite helpful. And I say it is free of charge as well, so really worth looking into.
No, thank you. And interestingly, the safer employment about the referencing, more and more now, we're gone with the days of being able to complete a 2-page tick box exercise. Now it's literally, I'm just sending you the confirmation of work dates that this person you're about to engage with has worked in our organization, or their organization rather. One of the problems that I'm finding is that actually how fit for purpose a reference really is. It really is becoming even less of a flavor of how this candidate behaves, because actually they're just giving you, I'm giving you what I'm allowed to give you, which is the dates. I'm not even allowed to tell you what their role was. It really becomes so frustrating. Not to sort of ruin the punchline to this training session, but is there any sort of steer that you can provide when it comes to these sort of referencing? Because now I've just done an online link that a past employer just completes that has, this is the person's date, this is what they tries to ask 5 questions, but they're not statutory, or you have to answer those questions. Were they useful? Were they attentive? Was there sickness? Blah, blah, blah. And a declaration to say, do you think they're fit for purpose or fit for work within this sector? Apart from that, what am I missing?
This webinar, that's kind of the purpose. You've invited an employment law expert along, as we're not employment law experts at Skills for Care. We do get asked this a lot, and how important it is to have quite a robust reference, even if you're working with some very vulnerable people. So yeah, hopefully the lawyer will be able to answer queries such as that. As I know, yeah, more and more it is just the dates worked, isn't it? And that's not helpful for anybody. So hopefully that will provide a little bit of clarification about what you actually can and can't do.
Thanks, Laura. Very helpful.
Karim, you've made a point very well. And references are something that you're required for the likes of CQC. Many companies are very concerned, as has been intimated, about the legal potential for being caught out for having said the wrong thing. And that's why they will only give, XYZ worked for us between X and why dates? And one of the things that people have said to us around the lack of real meetings as opposed to virtual meetings was that they were able to meet their competitors, their compatriots. And if you drum up a local network, because many people remember work in a very small area, and you're able to have what we might term as car park conversations, you know, would you employ Peter Webb? No, I wouldn't employ him. He's got a terrible sickness record. He never turns up. But no one's put that in writing, and no one's ever going to say that they've said that. And, you know, in what probably weren't the good old days, you used to give people a good reference to get rid of them. Because you gave them a bad reference, no one's going to take them off your hands. And I'm afraid it's a very, very difficult situation now, particularly now the lawyers have got involved.
Better register for that seminar then, Peter.
I mean, I don't quite know how Scott deals with some of these things, but I think it's a known problem, not just in this sector. It's a known problem in every sector of employment, particularly where you've got, you know, big demand for staff.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, and I totally empathise, you know, and I get Kareem's points. You know, when the thing that frustrates a lot of providers is that feeling of, you know, I can't get these references, they're not replying back to me, whether it's a current employee not wanting to release the reference or they're just being lazy. Excuse me. But there's that feeling of, well, what I get back is really a tick box exercise, and the information I'm getting back isn't worth a light. It just confirms that they work there. So what is the point? You know, like in America, it's a legal requirement, whereas here, you're right, people are worried about the kickback. So why are we getting them? We kind of do need them, but there's no stipulation on what you can and can't do, and it causes us a big problem. And I think there needs to be a marker in the sand of what is there. I mean, some people quite just accept the fact that we're going to press ahead and hire this person. We're going to show that we've done everything we physically can to obtain a reference and do that, but we're going to press ahead. We do all the, you know, the quality and sort of checks we can. But there's probably a limit, and there's an issue then is if we can't get references, we can't hire staff and losing them, we can't take on the care, we can't take on the packages. You know, it's a real, references is a problem. You know, I mean, the one thing that probably we benefit from as an outsourcer is our job when we're supporting a client is we are only looking at candidate attraction, pre-screening and assessment, booking interviews, chasing no-shows, getting the offer done, and then getting the references and getting the DBS and right to work. So they're the three bits of onboarding compliance we own. The problem is normally in a smaller business, it could be, I know Richard, who was on here from Purple Tribe, met with one of the Caremark group, and when we asked who was doing the recruitment, the chief exec's now doing the recruitment. Well, you know, then he's going to pass that on to who, the admin girl or boy in the office, or person that's in the person that's in the recruitment office chasing the references. And are they ringing them every day? You know, the intensity that you need to chase references at and really put people under pressure is often too much for most providers to commit to. You know, so you can get them, and we don't really struggle to get them, but that's probably because we haven't got 101 other duties in that business to perform. We're not the office manager, we're not the care coordinator, we're not the registered manager, we're not, you know, we're not one of these other, we're not wearing these other caps. So we probably sit in a more privileged position. You know, when we outsource a client, we have somebody looks after recruitment, somebody looks after onboarding and compliance. They are not the same two person. The recruiters, it's one skill. Compliance and onboarding is very detail conscious. Recruiters are more likened to, in a way, a salesperson in their tenacity and approach to driving phone calls and chasing candidates. You know, we talk about attracting candidates. You got to ring them 3-4 times, 3 or 4 emails, 3 or 4 WhatsApps and text before you get people in. Same with the reference checking, but that's a lot of work for people. So, you know, I don't know who does it in Kareem's business, but, you know, obtaining them. And if you're hiring volume staff, that's, you know, if you're hiring 5 people a month, 10 people a month, you know, that's, you know, you're looking at 20 references plus to chase, and it's not easy, you know. So I do empathise.
I think some of the points that have been made to me by providers is that they always make the final interview with somebody who has a degree of skill, they believe has a degree of skill in not just HR, but in the care sector. And they will take their word, you know, do I employ this person or not? And then when that person actually is employed and they are being shadowed, I've heard many times from the person doing the shadowing who they have made sure is well trained and well selected, that this person does not match the characteristics that they put in their CV or their resume, and that they don't last the induction period. And that's one of the reasons why we've seen probation periods being lengthened out, to make sure that people actually have got the skills. And again, I always say to people, when you're recruiting and someone offers you a certificate that says they've got a level this or a level that, and they've done this, check out for the genuineness of that certificate, because they are so easily faked nowadays. And if something goes wrong, you know, Karim or any of the rest of you, as an employer, will be liable for that error. So do, you know, and we see some of the certificates are so, well, so poor, really. Having said that, one of the local authorities used to do some very good training, but they were frequently misspelt. And you could tell the fake ones because they were neatly spelt and had the words all right in the right order and stuff. But you know, do check training, do check all the information that comes into you, particularly training certificates. Any more points for Laura or for John Buttle from the training, or for Scott? Okay, folks, well, thanks for coming. And a couple of things, we've mentioned the show at Excel, where you can hear from Scott, you can hear from Dudley Sawyer, and I'm sure that there'll be other people there of use. The next date of the next virtual meeting is the 10th of May. And in May, we also have a face-to-face meeting at Fulham Broadway, which will be easily accessible for those in the Northwest and from some other parts of London as well. So we'll circulate the details. And also for those in the Northwest London boroughs, we have one final Managing Stress MOT training session in May. And if you'd like to book a place on that, it takes about 90 minutes. It's run by Linda Tarpey, very good reputation. They've gone down very well. That's NHS funded training. If you'd like to undertake that, again, just drop me an email, send me a text, and I'll sort that out. And I know there's a lot of conversation about tenders at the moment, and local authorities offering tenders. People ringing up wanting help with that. We can point you in the right direction, but we can't write them for you. And if you haven't got the skill sets, don't bother to do the tender in the first place. But if you want to have a conversation with me about tenders or with Dudley, please give us a call. Any last points from any of the attendees or the presenters, or we'll let you go back? And if there are any points we haven't covered in the chat, I will keep the chat and I will come back to you. And if you've put your name and address in there, again, we'll come back to you. Laura, Scott, John?
No, I'm going to shut up because I'll go again if not, otherwise it'll be another hour.
I'll just put my contact details in the chat again in case anybody would want to talk to me about funding or recruitment. Do get in touch. Okay, great stuff. And we'll also send you keep the date for September because we've got a face-to-face meeting at Croydon with CQC. So that's something that I'm sure many of you'd like to attend, but we'll circulate that date well in advance. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. And we'll let you get back to your day. And again, thanks to the presenters and thanks to you all for turning up. All the best. Bye for now.
Thanks,
Thank
Peter.
you. Thanks, Peter.